who's having the best offseason so far in the NBA?
I think it's two teams, and I think one's better than the other. I think Oklahoma City by far is having the best
Which, as we
offseason.
record this, Mo, they still just have like almost $8 million to throw and a roster spot to throw at a free agent out there, where it's like, oh, no team's gonna take, I don't know, Tyus Jones or Gary Trent. Like, we're just gonna roll that salary. We're just gonna take him just because.
Right, and I think but I think the Isaiah Hartenstein move was such a big one for them, and I think it kind of fills a need in terms of rebounding. I think his playmaking is huge. I think it's something that they could really kind of have some fun with that. I think he can play with Chet on the floor. I think he could play center, and when they have to rest Chet, I think it gives them versatility. I think their biggest problem was lineup versatility. They could only play one way. I tend to criticize teams that only play one way. I think you need more versatility in your offense and your defense, and I think he kind of helps them in that regard. And again, just back to it again. And the more important thing is the basics. He will help you with rebounding, which is something they badly needed. And I was so annoyed with them for not getting a big man in the trade deadline.
Was Bismack Biyombo just not count anymore? What's going on here?
No, he doesn't. He didn't play. And barely did Gordon Hayward. Everybody who thought Gordon Hayward was going to be some amazing piece for Oklahoma City. And like, what are you guys doing?
You weren't even intrigued. Before he got injured last year, he was pretty good. I was at least intrigued because I don't actually think they've addressed their biggest need to me, which was that third guy who can maybe, because like the drive and kick stuff is nice, but like after Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and then Jalen Williams, you're kind of hard up for these like scorers who could break down defenses, and they didn't really get anybody that could do that. But as you said, they added offensive rebounding, they added passing in Hartenstein, and I guess I might be discounting. I actually think you're right. They had the best offseason. It's not even close. But when I say they haven't filled their biggest void, it's like Aaron Wiggins will get better, J-Dub will even get better, and so even like they might just give the ball to Chet more at this point and see like what he could do on the ball. And that's how you get that sort of third guy who can break down defenses.
I mean, there's a lot of different mixes that you can do with it. And yeah, sure, they could use a third option. They're a team that we look at and it's like, hey, they have to win the championship next year. It's still pretty young with all that. They have all those picks. Like they can go get what they need. In all honesty, with the picks that they have, they really want to, they can. Once they feel like they're in that situation, they'll go for it. But I mean, like, yeah, I wasn't intrigued with Gordon Hayward. Dan, he was washed.
I thought for the cost, I was intrigued. I was wrong, clearly.
I think Micic could have helped them more in the playoffs than Gordon Hayward did.
You're honestly not wrong about that, but
I mean, like, he could have given you another ball handler, another guy that can kind of penetrate and try to score. Like, I get why and all that stuff and things like that with what they did, but like, man, like to think like Gordon Hayward at this stage in his career was the missing piece is ridiculous when it was clear that you needed rebounding and you needed size. It was clear you needed that. And everybody said, no, I'm going to go on a rant because everybody was all, oh no, it's going to fuck up their spacing. They want to play 5 out and they don't want anybody to clog the lane. That's not how that shit works. Mm-hmm. Right? Like the important thing is like, look at Boston. Boston plays 5 out. They also play with a guard in the dunker spot. They also kind of move guys around and all of that stuff. They also rebound well. All 5 positions rebound very well for Boston. That's not the same for Oklahoma City. And their whole combat to we don't rebound well is, hey, it's okay. We force turnovers. Cool. You're dependent on the other team being idiots and turning the ball over so many times that it pays off for you. It changes in the playoffs. Like that works in the regular season on a night-to-night basis. Doesn't work necessarily in the playoffs. And I say that we have to understand full well. They had a great season. 1 seed, got a playoff round. Like that's improvement for them. That's steps forward for them in that sense. I just think they missed a window or they missed an opportunity to really even be better last season and take a further step forward at the trade deadline.
So I would push back and say, I'm fine with the approach of they wanted more information of what this team looks like in the playoffs. They got it. And then they got rid of Josh Giddey. I think it was clear to all of us that he wasn't going to help them anyway, but I've said this to everyone who has said something along the lines of you had, most of it not as intelligibly, if you've said, what is the opportunity they passed on at the trade deadline? I've seen a lot of people throw out Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford was unplayable by the end of that Dallas-Oklahoma City series. He ended up helping the Mavericks. Okay, sure. I don't see if you're saying they should have created their own trade market and force the Thunder to give them Larry Markkinen, or there was another name that you had in mind then, I don't know if that was possible, but like at least people are identifying names. I don't see the opportunity that they passed on. I'm okay with them taking a shot on Gordon Hayward. Not saying that you could have not done that, and you said maybe Micic helps you more in the playoffs at that point. I just don't see the player that they could, like, because Isaiah Hartenstein wasn't coming to you at the trade deadline.
Okay, there's PJ Washington was the guy they could have tried to make. They could outbid anybody, right? Like they could have made a run at PJ Washington, would have been an interesting fit for them.
Fair.
They could have made a run at
help with the rebounding as much though as you're thinking though. Is like if that's their biggest need, is that someone who's doing that?
Helps a little bit more than what they had. But then then if you really want to go for a big swing for the rebounding, man, make an offer for Andre Drummond with the Bulls. Like what was I mean, like I know
they preferred to let him walk for nothing in the offseason, Mo. So why don't you just cross his name?
Well, looking at the Bulls as the smartest organization who had offers for first round pick at the trade deadline for Caruso, instead gave him to the Thunder, which is also a name we forgot to mention, for just Josh Giddey and not get a pick back. Like, let's not look at the Bulls management as an organization of one that we should note as examples.
We mentioned the pick swap the Spurs got for taking on Harrison Barnes. The Bulls are just towing the tax line, like the way they built their roster. They couldn't even be the team that was like, well, we got the pick swap because we took back here, because they just didn't have the cap flexibility. Just I feel bad for both fans.
But also adding Caruso to that team, to the Thunder, like defensively, it's just like fuck.
And he took a lot of threes last year and shot like 40% on
them. He could play, man. The Lakers are still reeling from when they gave him up. It was funny. No, it was funny because like everybody outside, look, first off, I totally understand Laker exceptionalism is the most annoying thing there is on
Does it
Twitter
exist?
Or whatever.
They couldn't even get Jonas Valanciunas chose the Wizards.
No. But the fans constantly believing their guy. There was a run where they thought Steve Mikhailuk, or however you say his last name, was like this great hope. There was a run of that. Like, I mean, they hype up all of their guys, but there was a run of people outside going like, hey man, this Laker fans are nuts about this Alex Caruso guy. He's not that good. He goes to Chicago and you go, oh wow, he's really freaking good. The Lakers are still reeling from giving him up. That was a dude they should have never let walked out the door for them.
I honestly don't think there's an organization that's devalued two-way players like that play both ends of the floor as much as the Lakers since they won their title. Just like a banner in incompetence when you look at roster building. You said you had another team, though, nominee for the best offseason.
I think we got to look at the Knicks, even though they lost Hartenstein. I think
that is not where I thought you were going to go. Please shower me with some Knick love right here. I'm ready.
Well, I hate doing it on this podcast because of you, but the I like what they did with the Mikal Bridges stuff. Yeah, there's a little bit of holes and stuff that they need to kind of fix, and I think they need to find another center, although I still think like Mitchell Robinson, Precious Achiuwa, and then playing OG at the 5 is really something we're going to see quite a bit. As long as Tibbs doesn't run these guys into the ground, I think they're like, and that's he's going to. But
yeah, you just gave this motherfucker Mikal Bridges, who's going to somehow play over 48 minutes a game.
But like when you just look at what they have in terms of perimeter defense and whatnot, like I just really like what they got. Like all those pieces defensively, it's going to be a tough ass team to play regularly. And if they can just find a way to get Randall to kind of buy in and be healthy, and I'm not trying to say he wasn't bought in last year, but like being that sort of that second scorer guy that could kind of alleviate some of the pressure off of Brunson, I think this team has a chance to be really good next year.
I love everything you said. And I actually think the two most important developments to watch are with Tibbs and Julius Randle, because I honestly, I think Tibbs might have more control over it than Randle. I like the way Julius Randle played for a lot of last year. I thought he did better at the accessory work before he got hurt. And so if he's able to play, to me, he's become more important because you decided to play your best trade chips on Mikal Bridges, who's, when you're talking about generating shots, he's probably a C+ shot generator. He's like an A++ role player. Will fit on the ball, off the ball. If he's your third, fourth option, the shot generation is fine. As a number two, I don't think he's there. And I was open to him being that in Brooklyn, but I think it's clear that he can't be the one or the two. So Randall becomes more important. But what you mentioned, I think is the big thing. Yeah, they probably want another big, but like, because you have OG, there's no excuse to not do the Randall quote unquote at the 5, where Randall's your offensive 5 and OG Anunoby is your defensive 5, because now that works. And because you have Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, like that is I think Tibbs, and we've seen him be a little bit more flexible, I think, this past year than in other years rather. But that is almost the key, where it's Randall to me has become more important because you played your best trade chips on someone who is not a shot generating all-star. And then 2, can you get to these hyper versatile lineups that you are built to field, but they do go against the grain of Tibbs's core principles? I do think he'll be more open though, because would you ever have guessed? Look at the size of the quote unquote 4s that Tibbs was playing last year, or like him playing all those small guards at once. That's not something I think that you ever would have predicted him to lean on. So I'm hopeful, but like I really feel like that's the only reason you trade for Mikal Bridges, is because you're prepared to go the lineup configurations that you hinted at with it's kind of OG and Randall or your front line.
Yeah, I think that's something to expect. And I think that's what's going to be really just interesting with this squad. And because you want to play guys like Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, Bridges, you want to play those guys together. You're going to have to play smaller.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a big part of it too. So it's going to be interesting. I'll throw one more team out there, because this is the team you probably thought I was going to say. It's obviously Philly.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I like what they've done. It's my only thing with Philly, and this is, it's totally unfair, and I get it. And you guys can all criticize me for it. I get it.
They didn't resign Tobias Harris.
No. They need to be healthy. Like, it's just how, like, I kind of feel funny for Paul George. Like, Paul George leaves one dude that's often injured to go to another dude that's often injured by playoff time. So it's like, they just need to make sure it's all going to come down to Embiid's health. On paper, I like what they've done. This is a really good team. I think it's going to be fascinating, but we just got to see it work on the court in terms of health, man. Cause like, that's really it.
Yeah. I mean, getting Paul George, is you have the cap space to do it. Good. You convince him to leave the Clippers. That's fine. I just love the work that they've been able to do independent of that, where the Caleb Martin signing was just a home run. He should probably fire his agent, it sounds like. And then keeping Kelly Oubre Jr. So I like the roster they have, and I would assume they're going to sign KJ Martin to a balloon deal, because they have all those first round picks to trade. And so at midseason, you have a basically human trade exception to attach to those picks. If they're healthy, do you think if both teams are healthy between the Knicks and the Sixers, and if you want to throw anyone else in there, that's fine, which one is the second best team in the East?
I think, just assuming health, I will probably go the Sixers, just because there's really no answer for Embiid once he's healthy.
And that's like top end talent, Maxey, George, and that's a lot of top end talent.
That's really tough to handle. Because I actually think the perimeter defense can handle those guys, but I don't think they have a guy that can handle Embiid. And to be fair, not a lot of teams do that can handle him, right? That's kind of why he was the MVP 2 years ago. If he didn't get hurt and played at the pace he was playing at this year, probably would have won the MVP again. Like, it's not a shock. So I think that's kind of I would go them and then the Knicks.
I'd probably pick the Knicks, because they found what if Steph Curry could win Defensive Player of the Year and Deuce McBride. So I think that's just that has to be all the difference.
And that has nothing to do with the New York jerseys hanging behind you.
No. Look, there's a Magic jersey behind me. So
yeah, I know. I was ignoring that part.